They put like kind of
Yeah, yes, they were starting, because they were all on site. They had a photo of one that they had done somewhere else, and they are gonna clean it up, and the photo looks really good, and that's why yeah, but Checking. Okay, thank you.
If we reported on that.
Just shot me a text, saying I'll be here in 3 minutes, and that was 2 or 3 minutes. It's more like 5 minutes.
Steve is here. I could sit on the first one.
I'll leave him in minutes.
Because he actually went to the mock this morning too.
He's supposed to be walking down there.
Oh, I did make this time. I got this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Got to go and listen.
It was pretty warm out there.
Yes.
Right, such
Summer is here.
I know, can you imagine? Maybe this is the first week of May, when August is gonna be like. So.
It's that one May, a couple years ago, it was in London. It's around like Memorial Day. It was the pre-pandemic.
I think so. Yeah, because the spring of 2020 was actually like less glorious, like everybody could see outside. I was out on the back porch.
We thought about subbing in Steve for you, but no, you're pretty darn accurate when you sound it. And that is pretty darn accurate.
Yeah.
1 minute. But with that, we're ready to proceed if you are. Okay, good. Welcome to the May 8th, 2024 BAR large meeting at the public meeting room at 2 George Street. I'm John Robinson, your chairman. I have with us this evening Jay White, who will be recusing, on agenda items B3. On agenda item B3, also Luda Sobchuk, James Metters, Seton Brown, who will be recusing on agenda item B3, and Steve Ramos, who will be recusing on agenda item B2. Steve is in the audience and he will sub in as an alternate where appropriate. All applicants appearing this evening have been required to submit all documents in advance in conformity with submittal guidelines by the appropriate deadline. The applicant simply needs to ask Lawrence Courtney to advance the slide to that which we wish to see in the presentation. When approaching the podium, and each applicant or team member should, please identify yourself and your role in the project. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the City of Charleston's YouTube channel. Your presence here is your consent to have been recorded. The order of each presentation will be as follows. There will first be an introduction and overview of the project for us by the city architect. That is followed by the applicant's presentation. The applicant's presentation has a 10-minute time limit unless extended by the chair at the request of the applicant. And that can be followed by any and all questions at that time from the board or staff. Any and all presenters, again, should state their name clearly for the record and what their affiliation is with the project. Anyone who is affiliated with the applicant should speak during this period rather than subsequent periods of the agenda item. The applicant's presentation is followed by a public comment period. All of these applications are part of the public meeting format. Written public comments were required to be submitted by noon yesterday. They have been disseminated by the board. If we have received them, they will not be read into the record unless it's deemed necessary by me or a board member. Any person wishing to, any member of the public who is with us this evening wishing to speak on an agenda item gets a friendly reminder that there's a 2-minute time limit on such requests. The person wishing to speak should approach the podium, speak clearly, and state their name and address for the record. This is followed by city staff comments and recommendations. This in turn is followed by the applicant's response or clarification to anything discussed in the public comment period or the subsequent city staff comments and recommendations. This response has no more than a 5-minute time limit. The applicant should not feel the need to use the time if they don't have a response. This is in turn followed by board discussion and a vote. At this point, the applicant's presentation is over. Public comment is closed. The applicant may clarify inaccurate information or respond to a question if asked by the board or staff by raising a hand and waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled by the chairperson on any particular motion, and then a vote on the motion. The chair shall reread the motion verbatim. If I make a mistake in reading that motion, you should correct me for the record. Each member voting, for sake of clarity, should say either yay in favor or nay not in favor. The results of our deliberations are posted at www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR. There are no agenda items published for this evening that have been withdrawn at the request of the staff or applicant. There has been no written public comment submitted. This is a friendly reminder to all our participants to please turn off cell phones or other potentially disruptive devices. And that substantively, this is an architectural review board. So any comments related to lot coverage, livability, traffic, noise, rooftop bars, et cetera, are not the purview of this board, and therefore should not be voiced here in accordance with us being an administrative body that is subject to the South Carolina Code of Laws and our municipal code. With that spiel having been given, we have agenda item A1, which is approval of our April 10, 2024 meetings. Can I entertain a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion with the amendment for item number 4, that the decision should be marked as approved rather than stating decision. I think I
sorry.
forgot to fill in the blank.
With that,
We will do that.
okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes with Mr. White's motion? Okay, made by Mr. Metters. Is there a second? Ms. Bochuk, Mr. Brown?
I'll abstain.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering why you were reluctant on the motion, but now I remember. That's good. Good job. Mr. Metters. In favor of the motion to approve the minutes. Okay, Ms. Bochuk? Mr. White?
Yeah.
And myself, in favor. Thank you very much. Agenda item B1, 93 Society Street mock-up panel.
B1 is the 10 Workside mock-up review. It's not rated from 1997 in the Old Historic District. Request for review and approval of sample panels for renovations and addition at the Charleston Maritime Center for the South Carolina Aquarium Learning Lab. And we are ready for the applicant's presentation.
Name's John Ciccarelli, project architect. What I'd like to do, am I gonna forward or are you? I'd like to run you around the sample panel really quickly and let you know where each portion of the panel is located on the building. So, having said that, this is a portion with the fins. You can see it on the rendering up above, and that's where it's located on the plan. This is a typical storefront detail in the precast, and that's located on the left-hand side, and there are punch windows in the back. These are some typical storefront doors located in these areas on the existing building. This is a storefront window which is located exclusively on the parking lot side. And this was one of the areas that we had some comments about the first review. So what we've got here is what we saw a couple weeks ago, and then the revised panel. We had actually rebuilt that entire quadrant of the panel and addressed each of the comments. So the first one was the sealant color. The sealant color was originally white. We changed it out to gray as recommended. You see it over here on the revised. The J channel, which was against the precast panel, has been replaced with a more subtle detail, which is largely recessed behind the panel. The sill flashing, which turned over onto the face of the panel, has been recessed, as you can see in this picture. And the end dams, which were not supposed to have been there, have been corrected. So you cannot see them at all in the photograph. The bench, which is located out in the outdoor learning area. And then lastly, two of the other comments, one was to fill the form tie holes, and that has been done. And also the panel joints, which were some of the liquid from the cast in place concrete was easing into the joints between the panels. We had actually studied that in the, I don't know if you remember last time we were here, we talked about another panel we had originally done in Mount Pleasant. And we studied that on the Mount Pleasant panel, and we, for some reason, abandoned that. What we're going to do is bring that back. This is a 1/4 inch, I believe, or 3/8 inch reveal. It's a half round, and what it does is it's actually sealed on the form for this shape, and it keeps those liquids from oozing out. And it results in what we think is a very clean, a much cleaner panel joint. And again, this is where the 2 plywood panels come together. Instead of having that joint where that material can get out through, it's gonna be in the form of a semicircle. And what this does is it's much more subtle than the deep horizontal reveal. So it's going to allow those horizontals to be accentuated like they originally intended. That is it.
Good. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this tonight? Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendation?
Staff appreciate the much improved revisions to mock-up. Staff conditions for approval, any sealant between the windows, metal panels and storefront material and precast concrete panels needs to match the precast concrete and not be white, as noted. And 2, the vertical joint in precast concrete as shown in the photograph is the approved detail, not what is currently on site. Staff recommendation is mock-up approval with board and staff comments.
Thank you, BD. All right, any response?
No, we agree with those comments.
Doable?
Yes, very doable.
Good, excellent. All right. Board discussion and a vote on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the modifications and changes that were made. I thought it looked terrific.
Me too. This is the very detailed explanation of what we got corrected is great. Thank you to the applicant. Any other comments? If not, a motion.
Staff and board comments.
A motion is for approval incorporating board and staff comments. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Brown. Motion's in proper order. Mr. Metters, how do you vote?
Yeah,
Ms. Socho?
Yeah.
Mr. White? In favor. Mr. Brown?
In favor.
Myself, yeah, in favor. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item B2.
Item 2 is 155 Meeting Street, new construction in the old and historic district. Applicant is requesting final approval for new mixed-use development, hotel, residences, restaurant, and retail.
Oh, very familiar with this project.
Yes. And you can go to applicant presentation.
Okay, you good with that? Okay, it's very good. All right, we're here for final. When the applicant is ready, we are ready.
We've got some material samples.
Sure, take your time setting them up.
For Wednesday and Friday this much.
Something that come in the mail today?
What's that?
Did some of it come in the mail today?
This is my last second attempt to not have them with each other.
Sure. No, I'm just kidding.
I have.
The FedEx, padded on what works as well.
No. Almost. Thank you. My name is Nick Mustard. I'm a project manager and architect at MA. We're going to be presenting 155 Meeting Street tonight. I'm here with Risman from MA and Jeff McLeod from Hollander, who's the landscape architect. We're asking for 10 additional minutes.
Okay, 22, Brandon.
Perfect. And I just wanted to clarify, last time we were here for preliminary, we presented 2 submissions, site and architecture. Today's presentation is just 1 complete submission. So we've included written responses to staff conditions that will explain our response throughout the presentation. We've done that for architecture and for site. Moving through the rendering comparisons, the preliminary VAR is on the left, the final is on the right. Some very subtle changes to the geometry. The first point is the level 4 belt course geometry it's almost impossible to see. There's slight geometry change at the corner that we have adjusted in response to conversations with the precaster. We're trying to kind of standardize the shapes of these bell courses at those two levels, so it's exactly the same geometry. One of the other changes in this view is we reduced the lantern locations to be focused around entries. And at the corners of the building, we previously had lanterns at every pilaster. And then two of the other changes are the gatehouse. Sorry, I'll step back. Gatehouse envelope has been detailed as precast, and the resi-tell is precast with brick in it. Same changes for these two comparison views. Moving around the building. The view at the bridge seen from Horlbeck. There were two changes here. One response to staff comments from last time. The bell course at level 4 was previously kind of proud of the wall. I think the board and staff appreciated the detailing and design intent at level 2, and we've used a similar condition at level 4 now to kind of flatten that bell course and recede behind the reveal at the bridge. There was also another comment last time about some inconsistencies with the opening types, and I'll expand on that later, but we were showing architectural grille in this transom. It's actually vision glass, is rendered incorrectly, and we've corrected that for this presentation. And then in this view, just one architectural detail, there was a missing kind of connection at the peak of the groin vault, and that was added in this rendering and rendered correctly. Pass it off to Jeff for landscape.
Sure, and before I push forward, I'll just comment on one landscape element in this. So there was a staff comment to consider an evergreen at this planter, which is at a major site axis, and we've made that change to a southern magnolia. There it is. So moving into other site improvements. Overall, the plan geometries and materials are as they were in the last round. But we have updated project narratives, detailing, and materials. So one thing we want to talk about, there were comments on the western alley and the geometry of it in the last VAR. And we want to talk about the concept just a little more. We think it's the right concept for the project, and we also think that it's contextual to Charleston. In this way, it is urban circulation like the alleys, but it's also human connection and public space, as well as garden discovery. And we all know that, you know, Charleston, excuse me, Charleston has a major garden history, and we want to bring that into it as well. So looking at the blow-up plan, I guide you to these magenta lines. These are benches and seating areas. So this is that public space idea. We really want this to be a place that the citizens of Charleston can congregate, and we think the curve design facilitates that well in the way that it widens in particular areas. There's also some functional things that the curving design is doing for us. It's allowing to widen out these planters and move the trees off the walkway, which is going to help with heating and things like that. So here we are looking at that bird's eye just a little closer. You can see the benches right here, and there's our axial southern magnolia. Looking at the materials, they are very much related to the previous round. We've done some refinement. One thing we want to make clear in the last round, there may have been some confusion that we might be proposing something other than Charleston or SCDOT standards in the public realm, and that's not the case. Everything that we're going to do is exactly what we're supposed to be doing in this context. And then as we move into the site, you can see some of the materials down there. The goal is really for a harmonious transition into the site. So, you know, if there's rocked curbs in the public realm, we're going to have rock curbs coming in. We'll spend some time maybe matching the granite even better here and there. But that's really the intention of this project. And then finally, we did want to show you some of the detailing updates we made based on public comments and staff comments and board comments. You know, we take all of the performance factors really seriously. So with the pavement, everything on site is going to have slab under it to prevent spalling and situations of fracture where radial curves are coming into each other. We think that's the right approach for the project. There are also some comments about the moisture in Charleston and the planting beds from the public. We plan to use structural soils, which are going to create healthy trees with great root systems that don't want to heave sidewalks, and also under drain them to make sure that we don't get anaerobic conditions. So that kind of wraps up the site portion of it, and I'm going to hand it over to Rosanna from MA to speak about the architecture again.
Thank you, Jeff. So today we would like to share with you one more layer of design that is in tune and for us help and enhancing the public realm and the context, which is exterior lighting design. This kind of we start from the observation of the site. We walk along Meeting Street, we turn on Orbeck, and in general, despite some lighting at the ground floor, some street lighting, we believe that the site was kind of very dark and underwhelming, and then not necessarily was celebrating the identity of the place. And and we believe that lighting, exterior lighting, can be sensitively done also in the historic city. However, we start observing other precedent in Charleston. We really appreciate it and we really love how, for instance, the lighting and millwork really enhancing the architecture and the wrought iron that define the building and give identity to the building. We love how the arches of the Francis Marion are highlighted by the lights. And also next door, the Meeting Spring Inn has a series of lighting that highlight the side and the porch facade. So as mentioned before, we believe that light can be sensitively done in the historic city. Lighting were perceived as to be almost like a consequence of a daylight. Basically, the purpose of exterior lighting was not only to enhance the beauty of the architecture, but also to create a continuous sense of place that was extending from the day to the night. And then also to reinforce the context, the history of the context, and also to put back people to the public space. With this in mind, and with this purpose, with those items in mind, we would like to propose some exterior lighting for our building and our project. We really believe that the architecture, the detail, the quality of the material is civic in nature. And we understand that Charleston reserve exterior lighting for civic building. And we believe for those characteristics, our project is civic in nature and is appropriate for Meeting Street, which is, as we know, the Museum Miles Street. It's also, we conceive this building as public almost, as a welcoming, and the light, it enhances this quality of the building. In general, we are proposing very subtle lights that becomes an extension of the architecture and of the place, but do not overwhelm the architecture and the place. And to go a little bit more in detail, for example, for the gatehouse, we are kind of foreseeing some lighting at the gem of the opening to reinforce the rhythm and the repetition of the opening that is a distinctive character of Charleston. For the Grand Hotel, perhaps we can think to subtly uplight the detail of the column to reinforce the rhythm. And of course, in the center, in the residential entry, at the end of the highway, we were having in mind the mill house to kind of reinforce the reading of the beautiful metal work that we intend to create at the far back entry of the residential hotel. And also this corner, we believe we are at the corner of Meeting Street and Orbeck. How we believe that the light can create kind of an additional dimension to the architecture and to the building. The fact that the corner starts to become an identity brings also people to Orbeck, activating also that street, which is, as we know, a strong connector between Meeting Street and King Street. On Orbeck, we foresee more lighting on the kind of pedestrian level to enhance again the public space. The overall design will be just like a warm glow, very subtle, as I mentioned, as just an extension of a place and not overwhelming. And of course, you know, for us it's very important to strategically place the lighting so that it's not visible from any street level point. The proposed lighting are very small, they are barely 2 inches, and they are strategically located in the depth of the building facade so they cannot be seen. Also, the light temperature will be very important and play like a strategic role in the overall light illumination. Same concept for the gatehouse, very subtle. To change conversation, we would like to give you an update on the materiality and take it from where we left last time. Our concept to be contextual to the city of Charleston goes back to collaboration with local artisan and artists. And as mentioned last time during preliminary, we have like an ongoing conversation with American College of Building Arts in Charleston. We are going to collaborate with them in a few locations, both on the exterior of the facade and interior. For instance, we are already highlighting a design that they can help us to develop, which is the fountains that is located on our west facade at the axis of Fulton Lane. You will see from King Street. So we want to bring the artisan of Charleston be part of the project. As said, also we support the authenticity of Charleston by using material that we believe are honest in function and aesthetic. We carry natural stone, precast, brick, and then of course metal and other material. And just to go in detail, for the Grand Hotel, we carry natural stone at the location C and D.
Yeah, so this is stone type D, the kind of darker stone at the feet of those columns. This is the body of the first floor of the Grand Hotel. And then this is the body of the second floor hub reference.
Yeah. And so we really appreciate the precast because allow us to have a consistency in the overall large skin of a building facade. And then like what we saw like for 529 Street, 529 King Street, sorry, we use a lot of limestone aggregates in the precast to maintain the high quality of the precast per se and look almost like a stone almost. And also panelization for us is very important. The location of the structural joint of the precast are so much part of our design. They will never be an afterthought for us. We are very diligent in studying the location of the structural joint so that it's part of the design. And also, as you can see in the panel E, we really stretch the dimension of those paneling to be 2 floors so that we can read the column like as one piece to avoid as much as possible joints. So this is an ongoing conversation already with the precaster. And diving, for your reference, we are adding like details. You can see that articulation will be always our priority for all the facade, for all the building. And you can see from 1.5 scale detail, but also going in a greater detail of 3-inch scale. We continue to carry attention on the articulation and on the depth of the facade. And you can see in this plan detail, the precast, we are pushing to have sequential pour, but of the precast, but still one panel to avoid structural joints and cork joints. And I pass it to Nick that will continue the analysis about the materiality for the other building.
So just to kind of echo what this submission continues to develop and maintain and develop the design intent with these buildings. The gatehouse materiality is the kind of darker precast that we have here. This was an initial test at the texture of the pilasters. This is not what we're proposing at this point. We're still working on the texture. But those pilasters do have a smooth jam with kind of textured face. And then we'll get to the Resi Hotel in a similar manner, breaking down this facade and being kind of true to the joint patterns that we've developed, developing these kind of monolithic panels and a system to express the gatehouse up to the cornice and the detail and the depth that we've been able to achieve with the precast. This is the same sheet from preliminary. And then again, for each of these buildings, we've provided some samples of the enlarged details showing the pilaster and the spandrel panels. Moving through to the Resi Hotel, the envelope has been developed as precast, as I mentioned, with the brick inlay. And it's a monolithic or monochrome palette. The grout joints will match, and the mortar will match the brick. And at the top, the cornice is the same sawtooth or similar sawtooth detailing that we've shown in the past, referencing the gatehouse sawtooth. We've gone through the similar panel layout, looking at the Resi Hotel, rationalizing the system for this facade as well. And again, moving through some of the similar pages from preliminary VAR and the expanded details with the pilasters and the spandrels. We've got an example of the metal work. This was really kind of a test for the welds, looking at the overlapping welds between these two pieces. So that's kind of what you see from the street. We're pretty excited about the kind of quality that we're getting out of this. An initial test for color as well.
What is that metal?
I'm sorry.
What is the metal?
It's aluminum. So the ornamental panels, the vertical and horizontals are aluminum framed panels with the overlapping circle panel coating. And then there is a secondary structural frame that these would be mounted to. You can see that better on this page. So it is a pretty layered system. These are double height spans. And so there is, a secondary structure that will be provided to support all of the ornamental work. The bridge detailing is largely unchanged, as well as the conservatory. These are the same sheets from preliminary. It's the same detailing. Moving to, I'll try to speed up a little bit. The elevations, again, are largely unchanged beyond what we've talked about in the renderings earlier in the presentation. I included a view of the south elevation on Horlbeck and this diagram to highlight the opening types where there was a little bit of confusion last time, specifically pointing out the vision glass on Horlbeck and at that double height space on that southeast corner. West elevation, again, unchanged. And the north elevation, we removed 4 balconies on this elevation to match the south side on Horlbeck to leave that clean facade. And then a new chapter for this is the mock-up sheets. We have 5 mock-ups for this project, and we certainly like the board's review and opinion about the scope of these mock-ups. I believe that's the end of the graphic presentation. Again, we are here asking for approval for final VAR for architecture, site, facade lighting, and the scope of mock-up panels.
Okay, very good, thank you. Members of the public wishing to be heard.
Jim, can I ask a quick question?
Of course, yeah.
We go back to slide 11.
Is it easier for Lawrence? Are you able to go faster than me? Or not?
It doesn't go fast no matter what.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
It's
not much faster. That's fine. Maybe I can. Is this okay?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Would you like the larger view or this?
Well, what I'm really interested in is I think you called it the precast belt and how it changed on the corner. Well, you had drawn that detail to begin with, whoever drew it. I mean, it's really cool. And so the precast manufacturer just said they can't do that.
I'm not sure if I followed the question.
It's the
So the
curve.
agreement was here at the fourth floor?
Right. And well, it's the way the column, when it was coming in and it used to curve out and come back in.
Okay,
Changed.
so there were two things. The move here is to.
I'm full of that. I'm good with
Yeah, I
that.
think it's more visible here. So this,
Yes.
this point, they can do that, but we wanted to make this detail match that detail. We wanted both of them to be the same. And when you get up to the top, the cornice, this kind of the face of that parapet really was not working well with that additional kind of escalator.
So it wasn't a limitation of the precast
It was not.
supplier. I misunderstood that. I thought that's what was said. Okay.
No, it's just there's been, a good dialogue with the precaster. The details have evolved. We've improved things and made things more efficient, just to speak kind of generically about it. And that's one of the things where we felt like we could improve the quality here and more consistent with those details.
Thank you.
Any further, see,
One clarification for on slide 34, it's just the material palettes. Would you mind going through and telling us which on the floor are A, B, C, D?
Absolutely. So this is D. This is the base, the feet of the columns of the Grand Hotel. This is stone type C. It's kind of the body of the first floor. And then again, type B is that bell course is precast. So it's a color match to the stone, right? Because those should read as one element or related, strongly related. And then type A is the white, not the texture, smooth. This is gatehouse, and then this is Resi Hotel with the kind of monotone color match precast.
Very good, thank you. Further questions from the board at this time?
Very quickly, is that size of the brick you will be using?
I'm sorry?
This one.
No, the brick.
Oh, the brick?
Oh, the brick.
That's a Norman size, and coursing that, we'd like to do modular. That is just for color, so I apologize for that. We're not using the Norman.
Oh, it would be cool.
Yes.
We looked at, even longer, thinner proportions and, there's certain.
I think they are encouraging.
I'm sorry,
I think lengthwise they are encouraging.
it's just when you turn the corner, it turns into a third overlap, and so that was not, we're not fans of that.
Well, you breaking grounds everywhere, so. maybe
I try to get
This
custom
one as
bricks.
well.
Further questions of the applicant from board or staff at this time? See none, y'all can have a seat. Public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is James Ward. I had the pleasure of meeting with these folks Monday, and I really enjoyed their sitting down with me and reviewing it. My comments are made specifically into follow-up last meeting's comments, and specifically dealing with the landscape. I didn't realize we were separating. We had combined them again, but now I'm officially kind of addressing that. So I have a number of discrete comments in no particular order. The first is, as I was going back through and trying to refresh myself on the memory of the property, it seems to me that there were two parcels that were acquired just in April. And the last zoning review was in January. I'm just wondering if those extra parcels would make up part of this. Have also passed zoning review. I don't see any clear reference to that in the submission, so I just point that out. The second item is, as it relates to the comments there from before, the decision to go ahead and keep the curvilinear walk I can accept that as far as it goes, but I still have some fundamental ideas, again, related to landscape. And that is that this is a particular section of what is meant to be linkage that goes right the way over to Market Street and then also over to the new park that's being proposed. And although that's outside the boundaries of this, we are creating, in essence, a kind of semi-public space. And the continuity of how that reads together seems to me an important consideration. Somewhat made more problematic now that we combine the building and the landscape together. If they were separate, perhaps we'd have a chance to subsequent studies to make that resolve some of those issues earlier on. In any case, as we look at designing the landscape, just as we have for the beautiful architecture that you see here, which incorporates views from the streetscape of what we will see, which I think is fundamental to doing our job and not just looking at elevations. I don't see the same kind of treatment as it relates to the alleyway in the sense that we look down as a pigeon's eye view of the land of the alleyway, but not just to try to reveal the fundamental characteristics of that space, which I still feel is somewhat cavernous. That really leads to some of the technical issues which they addressed here, but not the aesthetic per se. There are a couple of things that would help with that. The shade studies that could be done back there to see how habitable that space actually is, given the height of the building and so forth. I realize it's somewhat complicated. But then also there's another more intangible aspect to the landscape there, which I believe was one of the requirements of the board last time, and that is to go through and talk to the neighbors there and try to coordinate what happens because they are linking into some of those properties from behind. And I don't see any clear reference to that having been done. And so there are some key issues as it relates to the landscape. One final note, and that is that I know we do not have archaeological ordinance, much to my chagrin at this particular point, but this is an important corner of the building, which might give some revealing aspects to the early founding of the city. I'm sure the Catherine Pemberton would enjoy seeing some archaeological work being done here, but that again relates to the site and something that perhaps can be incorporated as we look at this. Again, I'm looking at it just from a landscape point of view. I appreciate all the work that's been done on the architecture and just want to keep the landscape up to the same level and finesse as we see in the architecture. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Further public comments at this time? Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendations?
Sure. Applicant has modified Grand Hotel belt course detail to meet the bridge elegantly as requested at preliminary. Staff support the applicant's decision to keep the brick path organic, which is a point of discussion from preliminary, and change of the actual tree to an evergreen. We appreciate that as well. We support all of the key refinements made since preliminary review. So I have them detailed out that it'll be part of the official record, but they're literally copying from all of your pages that mention the key refinements throughout the entire place. We commend the collaboration with the American College of Building Arts for some of the detail work. We think that's really fantastic. And also one of my final comments before we get to conditions had to do with the fact that throughout the package, it was referenced as decorative metal. Right, and we want to make sure, which you have now, explained verbally, that the metal choices need to be specified for approval. So that's really important in those packages that it says that. So staff conditions for approval. 1, removal of uplighting from building. The AR staff does not permit the uplighting or downlighting of non-civic buildings. Uplighting is generally reserved for specimen trees or other key landscape moments. The lighting examples shown were either grandfathered or in the case of the Dewberry, removed after litigation. 2, any modifications to approved drawings required for code or fire department compliance or contemplated during construction must be approved by the BAR prior to undertaking the changes. Any modifications, substitutions to the materials or elements approved at final BAR hearing must be specifically noted, reviewed, and approved on the mock-up sample panel. And then finally, number 3, deviations from previously approved submissions, if determined by the BAR staff during or after completion of construction to be a downgrade of the quality of the project and inconsistent with its previous approvals, are not approved, whether noted or not by staff during our review of for permit drawings. So the last 2 really just general ways that we move forward with this project. Our recommendation is final approval with board and staff conditions with approval of all materials with final permit by staff.
Excellent. Thank you, BD. Response from the applicant at this time.
Brad Cook, the developer of the project. I just wanted to address a few of Mr. Ward's comments, which we appreciate, but I did want to clarify that the additional zoning lots that we closed on recently, when we started this project, we were in negotiations with the beach company about ground lease of those parcels. Throughout the course of those negotiations, we determined by both parties it was going to be more efficient for us to purchase this outright. So those zoning parcels were part of the original project consideration. It just the type of ownership changed throughout the course of the project so far. So address that one. On working with the neighbors, we have met pretty consistently with Mr. Whitman, who leases spaces on King Street, which occupy the King's Courtyard Inn and Fulton Lane Inn. Those are the primary parcels that have buildings that open onto King Street, but also open onto the alleyway. We met regularly with them. I'm meeting with Mr. Whitman tomorrow on general project coordination. We've always viewed, even though not formally obligated to, we know that he uses that, which now fronts onto the parking lot. That's an entrance to the building. So I think we've been pretty thoughtful about how we integrate with those entrances. And the final one on dealing with Ms. Pemberton and the archaeological potential for the site. We acknowledge the important historic nature of the site and possibility of the historic wall running under the site. And we've already had multiple conversations with her and had an open dialogue about corresponding with the group with archaeology. So we're not opposed to having exploration to determine any historical pieces of the site. So I just want to address those three items. Thank you.
Very good.
I'm just
Yep.
to address the lighting comment. And so we're, of course, we're aware of the traditions regarding lighting in Charleston. And we've been aware since the beginning of the project. Yet we continue to pursue it because we feel like it can be very important to not just the building, but the site itself. And this particular site, as you all know, this is a civic street. You feel like the quality of the architecture has a civic quality, and that it will add not just to the building, but to the site. So we've taken great care to prepare something that we feel like warrants a discussion, even though if it is something that is a bit unprecedented. So we appreciate the review and certainly understand the stance of the staff regarding lighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Board discussion.
I think this project has developed very well. I think I missed the last preliminary, but it's, appreciate the thoroughness of this application. And I agree with staff's, conditions and their recommendation. As to the lighting, it's not just staff that has consistently rejected requests to uplight commercial structures, it's the board as well. And that's because we understand that everyone that comes before this board and finds success with the board is proud of their accomplishment and they want to highlight it. And if that was the case, then the nighttime character of the city would be lost. So the longstanding custom of the board is to only allow uplighting of civics and religious structures. And I really think that is an important line to hold.
Further board comments?
So I agree with Jay's comments, and I'd like to ask one more question. Because I'm very sensitive to the decorative metals. So just briefly, if you think about the project overall, is all of the decorative metal aluminum?
It is.
So everything that we see on all buildings.
The overlapping circles are all metal. That's right. It is, as I described, there is a structural frame that will support that. It is not, those panels are not structural themselves. They will be attached to a secondary frame.
Further board comments?
I agree with all of my colleagues that the project is really come along nicely, and seeing the facade at night. There's one area that I'm not sure that I even considered when we were approving Skill Mass at the beginning, but what that conservatory is going to look like at night. as if a beacon on top of the city, when fully lit. So that's an area of concern for me, but, we are where we are at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Furthermore comments?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for final approval with board and staff comments. And approval of all materials with final permit by staff.
Mr. Metters, your motion, as I understand it, is for final approval of the project in addition to the materials incorporating board and staff comments. Final approval by staff permit.
That's great, but is the staff okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm gonna get in a comment because you're so quick on the draw. I don't want the boards and the staff's consensus on taking a hard line on uplighting or downlighting to be viewed as any way personally affiliated with this project. It's a beautiful project. But we've set a precedent, we've got a problem. I'm also very confident that with those beautiful facades, you will find a way to light parts of them, particularly on the first floor at night, that will still highlight that building. I feel strongly about that. So it's not our procedural position on that, and our precedent is in no way reflective of the value of this project. But otherwise, I agree and commend. The only other thing I would add, and I was literally thinking about when BD was going through that, is it's such a nice project. Tell the powers that be to stay away from value engineering on any of these materials.
Okay, since you interrupted me.
Yeah, but and so we James's motion is,
I still have.
I'm sorry, Susan. Yeah.
Very quickly. So I've been enjoying to participate and watch the development of this project. Is probably one of the most interesting, elegant. And so I always have, as far as the lighting, I always have the issue with that because where I'm coming from. That's in, okay, going through European cities and things like that, and Charleston is European based. So I think at one point we may want to revisit this rule. But then again, and it was very nicely done actually. Subtle how it was approached, the lighting, but I understand. There's an exception, so I cannot break it. One small comment. That column at the turn of the corner at the bridge, and it's really nice detail to me. Sort of Egyptian following of the capital, and that building with those bands and all that, they have that feel. So it's really nicely done, and hopefully it will be built correctly as well. But all that said, I'm all for it. Oh, I think we talked about, but is the metal sculpted ceiling, is that aluminum? You keep saying metal, but.
It is aluminum.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll yet to see how it will be together, but. Thank you.
So just I commend you on using the American College of the Building Arts. That's really important to invest in higher education, especially in such a unique school. So thank you for doing that.
Now adding briefly to that, the other really high quality presentation I was thinking about that has appeared before us used the American College of Building Arts. It's kind of like the cherry on top. Mr. Metter's motion is proper. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Brown, how do you vote on the motion?
Yea in favor.
Mr. Metters.
Yeah, in favor.
Ms. Socha.
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. White.
Yeah.
And myself, in favor. Thank you to the applicant. Yes, sir. Have a good evening, sir. Good about that. We got everything.
Oh, thank you, really.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, good to see you, Chad.
Good to see you. See, that's my new name. Oh, yeah. Fine. You might.
Sure. Oh, sure.
No.
Yeah. You know, is your. No. Not yours, I wouldn't be that vulgar. I will borrow your pen.
I'm gonna get you busy.
You just turn it around so no one mistakes him for something.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's like that right there. That's all right.
That's all right.
We know who Steve is.
Yeah. As long as it's turned around and no one online.
Yeah. Little invasion of body snatchers.
All right, we ready for agenda item number 3?
Everybody ready? Very good. Agenda item B3, 71 George Street.
So 71 George Street is not rated from 1975 in the Old and Historic District. The request exterior and interior renovation of the existing 1975 Stern Student Center.
There's notes from the other presentation. Repeat it. Good evening. My name is Artemi Jaltal. I am with Little Diversified Architecture. And thank you for your time today to present the Stern Student Center renovation project. Joining me today are Alicia Cordell and Christy Schultz from the college. We have Ryan Bain and Don Boss on the little team, and we have Scott Parker and Diane Summer from Design Works for our landscape team. We're excited to share our vision for the new Stern Student Center, which we'll hope will establish a dynamic and active hub at the center of the campus for the students, for the staff, and for the local community. While not directly relevant to today's discussion, it's always interesting to look back at the Seymour maps. There were some single houses on the property before the construction of the Stern Center in 1975. This site is located at the heart of the campus. It's directly diagonally from the Cistern and Randolph Hall. To the north, we got George Street, Glebe Street to the east, and then Cumming Street to the west of the property. From this aerial, notable features are the beautiful Grace Church to the south. We got Charleston Village to the west, and then larger campus buildings, called Charleston buildings. They were built about the same time as the Stern Student Center. So the campus grew rapidly in the 60s and 70s under a direction of Ted Stern, who was the president at the time. And so a lot of the campus architecture reflects that era. I'm going to hand over to Scott to talk about our landscape strategy.
Thank you. So Scott Parker with Design Works. So the slide that you see on the wall is a survey of the existing conditions. So as Artemi mentioned, our goal with the gardens around the Stern Center is really to transform this part of the campus into an active and engaging student center. We really want to focus on improving access. The gardens in the back are really difficult to get to. You have to sort of navigate through here, and then you come through a gate, and then you come through here, and then you finally arrive. You can also arrive in that location, and you can come through the building. And one of the things that you'll see about the renovation of the building is that we're really opening up this wall and this wall. And we want to open up those landscapes on both sides so that they're really perceived from that new activity space in the center. Likewise, with new access off of George Street, opening up through where the restaurants and the lobby are to the landscape in that location. So really improving access. We want, from a programmatic point of view, obviously we want it to be a space that functions really well on a daily basis for the students. But also it's a space where major events and activities will occur. And so because of that, we need to provide a secure edge when there is an event. So there's some gates that you'll see as a part of the design. The next thing that we want to do is there's a number of buildings, historic buildings that are owned by the college, including this one, this one, this one, that one, and then there's actually four sorority houses along that edge. And you know, if you look at the core of the campus, the historic buildings, they are really engaged in that landscape. And for whatever reason, there were some fences built along here, actually wood fences that seem a little dated. And then these buildings were really cut off from the landscape. So one of the things that we want to do is engage those structures, utilize some of the backspace. The back part of that building right now is called the Pride House. So being able to engage that into the landscape and really do away with the wooden fencing, and you'll see that in a moment. Next slide, please. Actually go forward too, if you don't mind. More. So this is a site plan of what's proposed. I want to step back for a moment. I'm a huge fan of Ed Pickney, who is the landscape architect that originally did the work here and did most of the work at the College of Charleston. Huge fan of his landscapes. And so what we're trying to do here is to incorporate as much of the work that he did as possible, but also, quite frankly, some of the spaces are not functioning for how the building wants to function and for the size of the campus today. So we are proposing to alter those landscapes in some ways. So importantly, on Glebe Street, the landscape there is a series of paths that sort of wiggle through there, some raised planters. There's some very nice trees in that location. Actually, if you go back to the one more. We should have asked for some additional time, sorry.
That's fine. Go, well, 5 more minutes, 10?
That's 10 would be good.
Okay.
You'll notice this landscape here. So go forward again. So what we're doing is proposing on Glebe Street is to really simplify that, let it open up to the interior of the building. There's some really beautiful live oak trees there. We actually want to add some more on a similar spacing to the cistern yard. Take out the raised planters. We can eliminate some of the steps and ramps that are there. And we're actually proposing a gravel treatment on the ground and really opening that up as a very flexible functioning space. Food trucks would be able to pull in there and things like that. The next big move is to really open up. As Artemi said, the cistern yard is right there to really open up access to the back garden here. Being able to incorporate what's going on behind this building and this building and creating a pathway through there where you're actually invited into the garden space itself. Here, there's an existing sunken amphitheater, and then there's a raised fountain. One of the things that with all of this landscape will now have a large cistern under it, which will be where we will store the stormwater. So we're meeting new requirements as well as really the resiliency goals of the College of Charleston through the way the stormwater will be handled. So new lawn there, outdoor dining. And then in the back, we still have a secret garden back there, and then some small garden rooms along the edges. Next slide. So you can see this is looking to the north. And where the amphitheater is and the fountain, and then the proposed design here, you can see the wood fencing, which would now be transformed into metal fencing. The edge between the sorority houses and this garden would still stay secured with fencing. Next. This is the space on Glebe Street as it exists today. Here's the proposed treatment with the gravel. And there's a proposed monument that would occur in that location. And I'll talk about that more in a second. Next one. So this monument that will go there, and the college is in the process of raising money, is a monument to 9 different African-American sororities and fraternities that exist on the campus. We've met with the student representatives of those sororities and fraternities. And there's a certain way that these monuments are being done, and they want to do one that's very similar to what you see on the screen. And if you go back, I think one more, go backwards, yeah. So we're looking at something like that that would occur in this location. So it would preside over the large part of the space along Glebe. It would also be a path that would move through it as you move back into the major gardens. So you can actually see in this view here, whereas currently you can't see back there and you're really not invited back, we're really opening that up to encourage people to come back into the garden space. Go forward, please. One more. So there's an existing arbor. That arbor will be retained. Behind that will be the secret garden. The fountain that currently exists on the site is now the home to a family of turtles, which are very important to the college. So there will be a new fountain built as a part of this behind there, and the turtles will be relocated to that location. Next, please. Final slide, and I know I've used too much time, but some beautiful existing historic ironwork that will be preserved. And then you can see the ironwork that's proposed to replace the wooden fencing would be very much in keeping with the design that's shown there. Thank you very much.
So the existing student center was completed and opened in 1975. These archive photos show the existing original design. Not the existing, the original design. The original program included the pool, a bowling alley, and there was a 2-story ballroom and multi-purpose space. Over the years, the college's needs evolved, leading to several interior and exterior renovations. The latest renovation was the exterior renovation in 2004, and that time the porches were infilled with glazing on George Street, the Glebe Street, and the courtyard facades. The triangular entrance addition was added on George Street, and so. During that renovation, majority of the original architectural form was compromised. Next slide. So this slide shows the north stair tower that's facing the cistern, George Street facade, and then the 2004 entrance addition. The Glebe Street entrance features 2 large unadorned wood facades on each side of the entrance, which is typical to the architecture of that era. And this is the Glebe Street facade. The first 3 floors are existing pool. So the College of Charleston closed the aquatics program in 2015, and the pool has been seen vacant since then. And this is just the context slide. Scott touched a little bit on it. There's a lot of single houses, historic single houses that are directly adjacent to the building, both on George Street, and Glebe Street.
I'm gonna walk you quickly through the plans. Demolition of the first floor plan, we're removing the pool and the locker rooms. There's a stair in the courtyard area. There is a catering kitchen on George Street facade that is being removed. This is the building section that shows demolition of the pool and then the infill of the multipurpose room. So the highlight of the ground floor and the is the new public lounge, the dining space that spills out to the exterior, and then the two restaurants. The pool is getting infilled with a multipurpose room, a two-story multipurpose room. And it's intended to serve as a meeting space for the students, for the staff, and for the community. These changes aim to significantly activate the ground floor and invigorate the building, which is currently underutilized. Second, demolition floor plan, again, the pool, there's some meeting rooms, that's all going away. The multipurpose room continues to the second floor with the mezzanine. We got student government organization, meeting rooms, student lounges, and then we have a porch cover. This is a new additional porch on the south facade to cover dining, outdoor dining on the ground level. Third floor demolition, we have offices. This is the last floor of the pool. We have some bleachers out there. So that's going away. The campus is putting their fitness center on this floor. It's going to take up the entire floor. Fourth floor demolition, we have admin office suite going, and there's a smaller multi-purpose ballroom that's going on this floor. And then lastly, the roof plan. It's going to house the mechanical units, but it's a current condition, and you can't see it from the street. Now to the exterior renovations. So I'm going to show a series of existing and proposed elevations renderings. The top two floors of this building are enveloped in street trees. We're not proposing removing the street trees. We're just not showing them to help explain our design. So in reviewing the building exterior, we struggled with its current proportions, the horizontal nature of the storefront light cuts, the very low ground floor. Buildings of this era are very hard to modify. They're boxy, dark, and harsh, which contrasts very sharply with Charleston's traditional architecture. And in reviewing BR principles for new construction, we realized that this building, as it currently stands, violates majority of those principles. So the proposed alterations to the facade include raising the sill of the second floor, creating an illusion of a taller ground floor, creating a continuous parapet at the third level to help mitigate some moisture intrusion, and also simplify the elevation. And then the addition of these verticals breaking out the bays. We are proposing removing the arches at the first and the fourth floor, and then removing the 2004 addition, entrance addition. Our hope with the removal of the arches and adding additional glazing is that the ground floor will activate the street, flood the interior space with natural light, create transparency through the building. Scott talked a little bit about it. You can see straight through the building into the courtyard. The new horrible portal entrance with transparent frameless glass will help invite students and community to step into what we are calling the living room of the campus. So updated proportions are seek to echo Charleston's historic vertical proportion, fostering a more urban rhythm down the street, which is not atypical to what you see on King Street, and even the Randolph Hall has the rhythm that we're proposing. We're purposefully setting the glazing back from the face of brick to allow depth in the facade, as well as to allow significant corbelling that can be found in other examples in the city, whether historic or the new Latrell that is only a few years old. So this is a slide of the existing condition, the unfortunate infill of the porches, the 2004 addition. Again, you can see that we're proposing removing the addition and creating a new entrance. Additionally, you can see that we're proposing a glazing that is more transparent and less reflective than what was utilized in 2004. And then to relieve some of the large brick areas that are endemic to this building, we are proposing introducing brick texturing. The brick texturing helps to bring the scale down for the pedestrians as they walk down the street. And so this is not atypical to Charleston. This is an example right down the street, Satili Theater. We're just proposing a somewhat contemporary application closer to the other precedents that are on the slide. The proposed materiality includes terracotta panels, vertical terracotta panels between the spandrel between the second and the third floor, brick, and then we have some cementitious stucco headers at the fourth level. And then you can see the corbelling thought behind the entrance. So this is the existing stair tower facing the cistern. We have a heavy brick mass at the fourth level. That we're proposing similar proposal to what we have on George Street, introduce a new vertical, adding glazing at the fourth level, open it up, lighten the whole stair element. This is the existing and proposed elevations. You can start seeing the rhythm that we're trying to create down George Street. The existing Glebe Street facade, this is not showing any of the landscaping, so it's pretty sad looking, but you can see the large brick elements that are flanking the entrance. Our proposal, we do have a similar texturing on here, it's just not rendering as well. And then this is where the pole currently is. The bottom two floors are the multi-story. We're opening up the glazing at the bottom level to create that sense of transparency on both sides of this wing, so you can see straight into the courtyard through the building. East elevations demo proposed. And this is a view from the courtyard that Scott showed earlier. That's the existing condition. This is the stair that's going away. This is the area where the porches got infilled, and that's the pool to the right. So you can see the porch on the south facade with a outdoor dining under it, spilling out of the dining area on the ground floor. And again, similar rhythm to what we're proposing on George Street. Similar depth to the facade, similar corbelling. And again, opening up the ground floor to activate the outdoor space. South elevation. And so this is looking from Cumming Street. This is the back of house area that we're proposing that we need to enlarge for the two restaurants that are going on the ground floor. You can see the pool wing in the background. And that's that proposed view, enlarged back of house area, new landscaping, and new openings in the wing. And then this is the last view from Cumming and George Street. We have the back of house area, fire pump rooms to stay, and you can see the modifications. And we're proposing, due to programmatic reasons, we had to add infill at the fourth floor in this area, but we are proposing similar texturing on the wall to relieve some of that brick that is so prevalent. West elevation. All right, so this is a night rendering. So in conclusion, our vision for the student center is to create a vibrant hub that not only meets the evolving needs of the college, but also enhances the surrounding campus and the neighboring environment. We try to provide college with an updated design that fits sensitively on the historic campus, and we're excited about the potential this project holds and look forward to your insight and feedback. And I think Alicia wanted to speak in support of the project too, if I have some time left.
Sure.
Good afternoon. Thank you for a couple of minutes. My name is Alicia Cadill. I'm the Executive Vice President for Student Affairs at the college. So the activities of the Stern Center fall in my portfolio. My office is on that third floor with the water intrusion situation presently. I'm thinking about Ted Stern. If you know anything about him, he was a student-centered person who was also about change and evolution. And so this building, as it exists currently, doesn't any longer meet the needs of our students and the vibrancy that we wish to create. And the team here can tell you from the very beginning, we've talked about the importance of this building reflecting Charleston living and Charleston life, the beauty of the city, the natural light, and the ability to flow more seamlessly between the interior and exterior of the building. So we've been really happy with the direction of the design based on input from the campus and multiple partners around the area. We think the building is now more inviting. I'm on campus, of course, every day. I can be standing right in front of the Stern Center and somebody says, I ask them if they're confused where they are going. They say the Stern Center. I'm like, it happens to be right here. So it really blends in. It's hard to find, hard to identify, even though it's a pretty large footprint on that corner of campus. So we look forward to the transformation. I'm sure you've heard the vision for the campus is this balance of tradition and transformation. And we see this as honoring the history, honoring the intent of Ted Stern, but evolving the ideas of what we want to see happen to engage and involve our students and to create something really beautiful in this corridor of campus that brings more students in, more community members in. You'll be able to get your coffee in the morning right in this part of campus. So we want to see more interaction and believe that this really supports the movement of the college, but also what it means to live in Charleston and for students to enjoy as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda?
Good evening. I didn't even realize this was on the agenda, but I'm really glad it was. Speaking as someone who worked in Ed Pickney's office in the late 70s and early 80s, and whose wife was a student activity director during the same period of time, I can clarify why that's a solid wall through there. In the late 70s, it was against the law or against college policy for students to drink off campus. You had to drink on campus. And so that area was set up to confine students while they were drinking, so that the bartenders could be trained right there in the giant ballroom and keep an eye on the students so they could drink.
Now we know.
So, you know, just to clarify that. because
My, how
that
times have
changes the
changed.
whole sort of just a little bit. Now it's a little different. I just going back and looking at the design, and this is just looking at it, and this is kind of a gut level thing, but I know John Wilson is probably rolling over in his grave about the fountain going out. I do think that, and I said, I think about it, trying to give some credence, of course. I think it's a great idea to open it up, because now the whole thing, the whole mission and everything of the building has changed. And I think that's great, but I wonder if we really need to get rid of that fountain. I mean, to me, it's kind of an archetype of that area, and I know a lot of students who really like it. So I just ask you to think about that just a little bit, and whether or not it would work with your new orientation. Those giant stairs were to tie the ballroom back into the back area where concerts could be held. And the concert back onto that arbor and broadcast out at that space, but it didn't broadcast out the broad. So that's another little tidbit there. The other thing, since I am altogether too aware of the property, there was some question about the back 20 foot of the church behind the church and ownership. And I wonder if that's been clarified. I know the church holds an idea that they still own that property. You might want to check with your surveyor to make sure that property has been properly acquired. Let's see, and I know the church has got a plaque that shows a conveyance. Let's see, and then the other thing, although we've been looking at the landscape in really abstract, simplified form, since we're primarily dealing with the building. Again, landscapes don't get a lot of attention. It's really in bad shape, the streetscape in particular. Even initially, they use short section of bluestone curve instead of long sections of granite curve. We've got all kinds of upheaval and all the rest of it. It ain't safe. And so I'm hoping as part of the site work for this, we'll be able to address a lot of that and be able to deal with it. This part of the character of this space also is that, well, I think Ed Pinkney said some words to the effect that when you're building a building at the College of Charleston, you have a choice. You're going to use walk-along brick, but you can change the color. So that's all he would allow. That was to provide uniformity. I don't know whether that's still appropriate to apply, and as I look at this building and compare it to, for example, the new arts building that's being built on St. Philip's, I just wonder whether we need some color here, much like they did over there, not to try to compare architecture, but just to kind of think now in a new vein, showing that I'm not stuck in the mud at the old generation, because there's plenty of reason to change. But it still looks like a big brown building, although the articulation of it is far more, I think, worthwhile. And maybe we'll finally get rid of the water, not only in the pool, but also in the intrusion, as we've all had to live with. But it still looks like a big brown building. And I'm like looking at it as a student activity center, trying to promote that kind of vitality and wondering if perhaps we should be thinking about that.
Thank you. Further, additional members of the public wishing to be heard. Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendations?
Staff appreciates the comprehensive nature of the submittal. We support the hardscape and landscape modifications to the site to include the addition of the monument, the moving, refurbishing of the ironwork and gatework, as well as adding to it. Staff acknowledge the quality of the design effort directed toward the renovation of the existing building. If this were a submittal for new construction, staff would have supported the architectural direction of the building. However, this is not new construction, but a building whose design began in 1972 and was constructed in 1975. Therefore, we must look at BAR principles and policies applicable to existing buildings. The 2007 previously mentioned BAR principles, which provide guidance for new construction, renovations, and repairs, has three categories of verbs. So I'm just going to use it here. A principle activated by shall is mandatory rule unless applicant makes a compelling argument to the contrary. The following principle is applicable to this submittal. Quote, the renovation or repair of existing structures shall be in accordance with the Secretary Interior standards for historic preservation. And so it's the standards of rehabilitation that are applicable in this case. Standard number 2 is the removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Standard 3, each property will be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development will not be undertaken. And then standard 5, distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. In addition, what is also applicable here is the BAR policy statement, Charleston standards, and the two that are applicable are as follows. Number 2, the buildings of Charleston provide a physical record of their time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development obscure that record or are not encouraged. Number 9, additions, adjacent or related new constructions and modifications should be undertaken in a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity remain unimpaired. The existing structure is representative of late modern architecture. General characteristics of late modern buildings include beefy, bold shapes, simple geometries, and sharp corners often wrapped in a singular material. The late modern defining characteristics of the Stern Center certainly align with its general description and include the ubiquity of the brick as the primary material expression, the simple arches at both the base and top of the building, the strong horizontality of the building's base and top, the large expanses of brick, the simple volumes, and the simple large geometric fenestration openings. The question becomes, How do BAR principles and policies apply to this structure and the proposed renovations? The proposed renovations mostly retain the height, scale, and mass of the existing building. The removal of the later addition tower on George Street elevation does not negatively impact the understanding of the late modern structure. The infill of the strong geometric volumes on the south elevation do alter the original massing expression. The submittal significantly alters the architectural direction of the existing structure as the proposed renovations remove the simple flat arches at base and top, the strong horizontal expressions, and the simple large geometric fenestration openings. The large expanses of brick are still present in the proposal and support the original architectural expression of the building in that case. Staff requires a rethinking of the renovation that would support a reading of the building that does not lead to a false sense of historic development. As proposed in the submittal, it is not clear what time this building is. A renovation that made clear that this is a late modern structure would keep intact the simple flat arches at the base and top, the strong horizontal expressions, the simple large geometric fenestration openings, the simple bold massings, as well as large expanses of brick. Staff is open to the removal of the later tower, the removal of blank walls within the arches to become window walls, reskinning the brick and replacing the existing fenestration. That brings us to the staff recommendation. Conceptual approval of proposed site work, denial of proposed building renovation with board and staff comments.
Thank you, BD. The applicant has 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you to staff and for the time to meet with us and for your thoughtful review of the submittal. However, respectfully, our views are not aligned with the city's assessment. City of Charleston BR standards are based on the Secretary of Interior standards for treatment of historic properties. This building is neither historic nor architecturally significant, as proven by the lack of comments from HCF and the Preservation Society and by the building's age. Even if we consider standards, we disagree with the notion that our project would create a false sense of historic development. We believe our design is responsive to the existing form and is sensitive to the context of our city. Standards further emphasize the importance of craftsmanship of the historic buildings. This building lacks basic craftsmanship, as demonstrated by the multitude of moisture intrusion problems requiring this level of alterations. Modifications that have been done to the building to date have not been sympathetic to the original design and have stripped this building of its original form and depth. Our proposed design seeks to reconcile the pragmatic needs of the college while restoring the notion of form and depth to the facade. Finally, in our opinion, the BR Charleston standards list is not suitable for evaluating buildings constructed in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. As original design, this building has no contextual connection to its surrounding. It was essentially placeless. We are all familiar with the type of buildings that our city that this list is intended for. It's highly specific and we fully support adhering to these standards for historic buildings. However, we do not believe this particular building fits that definition.
Thank you to the applicant for a thoughtful response. Okay, more discussion. BD, I was impressed by your comments because they were thoughtful for a building that I think we would all concede doesn't have a ton of architectural merit or a lot of love for it. Yes, it is very definitional of its time or age, but we don't consider it an iconic building. I also have a conflict because the 2017 standards and the National Trust standards are GuideStar or Lodestar, of course. But the problem is that the renovations that occurred in 2004, is that one the early 2000s?
Yeah.
To the applicant's point, to a large extent obliterated and altered what was a pure building, even if it's not one that we would consider particularly attractive, the design that has aged well. So I understand the architect's conflict in asking to do yet another iteration of a building that in reality has been heavily modified. I don't know that I'm leaning towards an outright denial, but in light of the one public comment that we did have this evening related to the building, colors, fenestration, and perhaps what could be done with those arches without completely eliminating them is something that's interesting to me and would cause me to support a deferral on the exterior of the structure. I am fine with the conceptual proposal regarding the site plan. Further comments?
I wanted to ask a couple of questions. Is it safe to say that 90% or more of the facade is being reskinned?
100% of the facade is being
100%, okay. And in terms of the Secretary of Interior standards, is it true that they only apply if the building is 50 years old or more?
So, no, that's a guide.
Okay.
It depends on how they're applied. And our 2017 talk about existing buildings, not historic. That's why I applied it to this moment. If it said historic buildings, I wouldn't have quoted it, but it said existing buildings. This is an existing building that, as we know, is technically months away from being 50 years old.
And,
Yeah.
and that's what I struggle with, is because this, we did not apply the standard in those renovations that were made in the early 2000s, and obviously they pushed this building in.
But I think there's an opportunity for the renovations to bring it back.
That is
in
true.
certain
That is possible.
aspects. Yeah.
That is possible.
Yeah, particularly because it's specific style of the architecture of the air.
Yeah.
So it's.
And you can still read it. The style of the era was based on the massings and the bold forms and the big geometries, not, not on the fenestration.
Steve, you want to continue?
Well, I too am struggling, and I'm wondering, should we be evaluating it as if it is a new building, if it's 100% new skin? Should we be looking at it through the lens of a new structure?
Are you saying 100% 2004?
No, 100% of the exterior of brick is going away. We're putting,
In their
In
proposal.
this
Yeah,
proposal.
she was clarifying, did that happen in 2004? In this proposal.
But I guess some of it is going back as it currently is, as a brick wall, for example. And,
Again, what is proposed doesn't count, okay, as far as the 100% to me. Anyway, my personal feeling about this building beside, I don't particularly fan of that air, but what is proposed seems to be completely new building. So literally, it doesn't look anything what is there now, and there's no, but it is specific style what it was built in, and a bit of the brutalism there even, which we don't have also enough in this city. So I am turned here, and I think that, as DD says, and those comments and stuff, is there's a possibility to preserve the sort of integrity of the specific elements for that style, not to get away from it totally, or skin it 100%, and still get the palatable building and renovation and fix the leaks and things like that. So I'm not on board with this yet.
you would go ahead.
Can I add something? We talked about bringing back the building back to its original style. Due to the current modification, due to the modifications that were done in 2004, that space, the programmatic space, have been infilled. So there's no really a way to go back to what was originally in 1975. And so that's been our struggle, is to how to incorporate the 2004 additions into the facade of this building.
And this is a weird building to try to fit this into, but we also have a tradition in this board of preserving change through time, unless the change was really of inferior quality. So this one is a quandary. But I don't feel like it's a dodge because it is a quandary and it is a complex problem. And I think we need to look at it. And some questions have been raised about should it be another brown building from this era in this neighborhood? I don't have any problems at all with an approval of the site plan and deferral on building. So I'm going to make that motion.
I still think that, how it's designed now and presented, it doesn't have anything to do with the context around. So it's not improving that way. So yes, I'm supporting this.
Okay, so that's a second of a motion to defer incorporating board staff comments, but approving the site plan.
Yes.
Mr. Ramos, would you vote on that motion?
You seconded it?
Mhm.
Yay, in favor?
Ms. Sobchak?
Yeah, in favor.
Myself, yea, in favor. Staff will work with you and the applicant with what I think we all acknowledge is a different challenge.
Not denying. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dee Dee, for your thoughtful remarks. No, that's okay. That's fine. And I think that you talking with them, I think the very thoughtful